I'm no fortune teller, but I definitely see some of this in our future. Let's start off with a quote. It's not the strongest or the most intelligent who will survive, but those who can best manage change. Now, change is hard. We all know this. Change is hard. But I think the tech department and the district has handled this change really, really well. And I'm really proud of how quickly we've been able to pivot from one instructional modality to the next. And that's not something that everybody can do. And that leads us into our Google Workspace deja vu. How's that for a rhyme? So as we move through 2021 to 22, we noticed something. We noticed that Google Workspace use continues to be at an elevated level even as school returned to full-time in-person. So let's compare the usage. So if we look at 1920, right, which was a full-time in-person year, and then we look at 21-22, which now is a full-time in-person year, you'll see that every metric of use is up. Now, of course, we would expect last year, right, 2021 to be up because, half the kids were home, half the time, right? So of course everything's going to be up. But comparing these two, full year in person, right, full-time in person, we could see that every digital metric is up. Now, some people will say that COVID really effed us. I would tend to agree. COVID forced us to change the way we do business. And that started with how we used all of our digital tools, right? Like we're all Meet experts now. We're all Zoom experts. And look at how the kids and teachers are now using all of this technology a lot more than they were before. Each area shows tremendous growth. Now for some front of the house upgrades. These are upgrades that are focused on supporting our multimodal teaching. First is PowerTeacher Pro. All of the teachers have been migrated to a new web-based gradebook, so they're no longer tied to any one device to get their gradebook work done. That allows for more flexibility. They could literally be anywhere. They could do this on their phone if they wanted to. We're upgrading classroom technology, we're phasing in new interactive displays and document cameras. And we've got TV studio upgrades too. Upgraded in new cameras, lights, audio equipment with remote capabilities. Now, with social distancing and mask mandates, the need to utilize technology to create, express, and emote has really never been higher. The IB program, which is run by Dan Mahoney and Catherine Schutz, really allows students to collaborate and learn hands-on how to work in real-world production environments. They're learning more than just how to make great media. They're learning how to function as a team in the workplace. These days, there's more live stream events now too, than ever before. Students in the media program know how to set up and run these events. And an example of that is this year's Color Wars, which was the most watched live stream event in PV history, and also the Student Spotlight Awards. But the benefits aren't just limited to a couple classrooms, a couple classes in the TV studio. There are real district benefits too. The students recently assisted Jackie Levine to produce a video for parents about the Aspire program at the high school. And the studio upgrades, mentioned a couple slides ago, allows more students to work simultaneously on projects and gives students an advantage when moving toward college or a career in production. Now for the Elementary School Innovation Lab. That's run by Jennifer Bruno. The Innovation Lab blends computer science and STEM to teach algorithmic thinking in a really engaging way. So throughout the year, students in grades K-4 have had several opportunities to explore and experience the engineering design process at varying levels. The 4th grade, for example, had a maze design unit in which the unit led them through an inquiry-based see, think, and wonder activity. Now, what is see, think, and wonder? That's a routine that allows students the time to thoughtfully consider not only what they're observing, but also how those observations, what those observations mean. And as you can see in this picture, the kids are using iPads to explore maze design. I've got a great description of the unit here written by Jen Bruno that I'd like to read. Students observed several photos of mazes and were then asked to share their thoughts, including any background knowledge, as well as questions they may have had. Through questioning and making connections with the previous station exploration, students were able to come up with specific aspects about mazes. Students were then presented with the challenge to design and draw their own marble maze while following certain constraints. The planned process was completed in several steps to ensure a thorough design was completed. Students were able to choose the materials they used to complete their design and were required to test as they built. If changes or improvements were needed, that happened throughout the process as well. Now, technology is not just limited to tech people geeking out. Oh, this is their completed mazes. This is the fourth graders who completed mazes. So, yeah, tech's not just limited to geeking out. We're also able to provide highly accessible and quality professional development. During the superintendent conference day, Dan, Ed, and Laura provided Google Workspace workshops and Screencastify workshops. During the school year, Dan, Laura, and I provided individual, so one-on-one, and open question and answer and training sessions for teachers on PowerTeacher Pro, and also the interactive displays. And coming in the summer of 2022, Alex Goffman and Jackie are going to launch the new curriculum and instruction website. Now for our infrastructure projects. These are projects that we work closely with operations, and Matt Brady has been an integral part of the team in terms of performing a lot of this work in-house, and that ends up saving us a great deal of money. Just real quickly, the elementary school has new PA speakers everywhere, each classroom and outside the building. The new auxiliary classrooms, that's all completely network ready, so you could go there and the network's completely done. There's a new auditorium sound system with Bluetooth streaming. In the middle school, nearly all of the security cameras have been replaced. There's also a new auditorium sound system with Bluetooth streaming, and they have a new auditorium laser projector system, just like this one. And in transportation, we've got new routing software coming. We're going to roll that out in the summertime, and new bus camera systems. Now, staffing. Staffing for next year looks very much the same as this year and the year before and before. In fact, it's been unchanged since the 18-19 school year. This is a brief overview of all of our expenses. It's pretty much the same as with any year. I'll go to the next slide. And again. So as you can see, the only real financial detail there is our BOCES IPA, how much we plan to spend utilizing the IPA process. The other numbers are pretty preliminary because the RIC and PNW BOCES hadn't shared their estimates yet with us. So looking forward in terms of what should we plan to spend on now. To complete this year, we've got the Wellness Center AV system, as well as the PAC audio system for the hearing impaired. To plan for in the future, just new servers to host our VMs, in which we will use the BOCES IPA process for. So there shouldn't be any budget-to-budget impact. And then following that is a plan to replace all of our switches and wireless access points. And for that, we could use the remaining funds in the Smart Schools funds. And so there will also be no budget impact. And let's be frank, PV is pretty awesome. Thanks.
Did you plan this? Both
No.
of you being hot dogs?
That was unplanned. I don't even know the kid. But I'm glad he wore a hot dog.
I was going to say, Mike didn't know he was being a hot dog either until about 3 minutes before the parade started. So there was not a lot of planning going on any side.
Jeremy was like, "You're a hot dog." I'm like, "No, I'm not." Then I was like, "Yes, I am."
Michael, I got a few questions for you. Can you tell me a little bit more about the PowerTeacher Pro and the challenges that is addressing?
Sure. The challenge that it's addressing is that previously we had to have a program running on the laptops, right? So you couldn't just do it from anywhere. You needed to have your laptop. What this does is you could do your grading and all of your teacher functions using any device. So you could be someplace without your laptop and take out your phone. And you'd be like, oh, now I could do my grading. It's just a lot more flexible, and it's a lot more reliable in terms of backups because nothing lives on your device.
So you're saying it's a web app as opposed to a native application?
Yeah, it's completely web-based.
So then you don't have to also do any maintenance on anybody's machine?
That's right. Okay. That's right. Yeah.
But it's secure? Here I'm doing...
It's still
grade?
hosted right here, right?
Okay.
So it's still not going out there on the web. It's still going on our own systems, but it's web-based.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's completely device agnostic. Do it from anywhere, any device, but all the information still comes right here. It doesn't go out there.
Okay.
Yep.
Following up, also similar question, the benefits or what we hope to gain from new routing software for the buses?
So the routing software that we had was getting really old. And the routing software that we had was much like the previous grading software, tied to a certain number of machines. So now what the new routing software does is it'll allow people, for example, if they're quarantined or somehow not able to get to the office, they would be able to do this work at home on any device, because that too is a web-based platform, but also hosted right here. So again, we're not going out there. It's a web program that's hosted by us.
So this is not, I know, hadn't been too long ago that conversation had started with thinking of GPS tracking of buses and that type of thing. That's not what this is.
That's not what this is. This is just routing software on planning the bus stops and who the buses pick up.
And then also, it seems to be in a constant changeover, and I guess technology changes and contracts change, the bus cameras. Mm-hmm. What's the difference with this round of bus cameras that we're talking about? Or is it just making sure everything else that is not outfitted is outfitted?
With this, all of the cameras across the entire fleet, our fleet and Orange County's fleet, will be completely unified. And so we could use one system to pull all the footage instead of, 3 systems. Yeah.
I've got 2 more. The kind of the strategic decision on, the financial decision and then the practical decisions for the number of laptops versus Chromebooks. Where's kind of the, or with other devices, I should say, not necessarily just Chromebooks. Where is that line? What's the, the numbers? What grade? Is it based on grades, or could you tell us a little bit more of that?
Yeah, so I think the current vision that we've got would be the elementary school will be one day Chromebooks. And then the middle school too will also be Chromebooks. The high school here, they really love their actual computers because they do actual computer things. And so here in the high school, there had been expressed a desire to retain their actual computers.
So essentially we're migrating all other buildings to Chromebooks or other devices.
Right.
Because they are cheaper, correct? Significantly cheaper.
They're cheaper and they're easier to maintain flexibility in this sort of new environment.
Because mostly they're using just web stuff anyway.
Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah.
And then I think my last question, you had answered one of it already about the switches and all that type of thing. We're going to be able to tap into the smart funds. Will that exhaust the final amount of our smart funds available, the smart bonds fund?
If I'm smart with the money, no.
Okay.
It shouldn't. It shouldn't. I've been pricing out equipment that it should not exhaust the rest of it.
Thank you.
Yep.
I have a question, actually, not so much for you, Mike, maybe it is for you, but for Jeremy or Jill. Will the budget presentation, there aren't specific numbers, on here in terms of increases for, yes, Jeremy's reaching for his microphone because that's a Jeremy question. So will that be, later presentation with Jill incorporating all of the increases, things that are say the same, et cetera?
Yeah, so as the budget presentations go on, more and more detail will be shared. So Jill and myself will give presentations talking about sort of departmental, sort of big picture numbers, okay. And then always before the budget's adopted, the line item budget is made available to anyone who wants to go line by line. My request for all of our administrators when presenting is to really just provide high-level information. Staffing is obviously the driving force behind much of our expenditure, so any staffing recommendations will be discussed during these meetings. Any line items where we know there'll be substantial increases or decreases should be highlighted, and anything sort of down the road that we're looking at that will have a financial impact should be discussed, and that's sort of across the board. In Mike's case, there's not really anything new to highlight in terms of coming in. And there's really no anticipated increase in expenditures. His staffing hasn't changed in many years, and a vast majority of his budget is based upon estimates from BOCES. So we project a percentage increase for whatever those costs will go up, but we don't have those actual expenses at this time anyway. If Mike was requesting to add a technician, or we had an overhaul of a certain system scheduled for next year, those would have obviously impacts on the budget and would have been highlighted in this presentation. So in Mike's case, he doesn't really have any real anticipated increases or any anticipated decreases. So that's really why those haven't been captured in this presentation. If they were expected, he would have covered them here. But always the line by line budget will be available to anyone in the community who wants to see it when it's complete.
I mean, it makes sense. Present what we want to pay for, at some of these early presentations, and then get down to the details later on.
Right. If we started attaching line item numbers to each one of these bullets, these presentations would take hours, and it would be mind-numbingly boring for anyone other than maybe Jill. So that information is always available, but it's not highlighted by bullet in any of the budget presentations.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, and I need to say to Mike and Jeremy, Jill, the fact that the usage has so increased, hundreds of % in some cases, and the cost is staying level is really, it's great for the people of Putnam Valley. I know it's a lot of work for you all to do all the finagling and wiggling and trying to fixing, and you talk about one-on-one tutoring for, I've been the beneficiary of that. I know that other teachers have, and that's a huge gift to the district. So thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to echo those thoughts. I know Putnam Valley has a long-standing tradition of sort of being cutting edge in terms of technology, and that, I think, has only been highlighted in the midst of this pandemic. And as someone with a background in technology, I fully understand the success of our technology implementation is about the people and not about the products. It's not the type of devices we buy. It's not the infrastructure that runs them. We have uniquely talented staff in this district that not only understand and support the technical side, but also understand, support, and provide professional development on the instructional side. Having the same individuals that can fix a broken computer or a switch or diagnose a problem also be the same individuals that work one-to-one with a teacher to teach them how to effectively utilize technology to benefit their students is unheard of in education. Those are normally two totally different people, two totally different positions, two totally different backgrounds. And Putnam Valley is a very unique place where we have super talented individuals that work for our technology department that can support both the technical and the instructional side, and that alone is the reason for the success we have here. So I do want to take this opportunity to thank Mike and the rest of the members of his department, his leadership throughout the last several years. I know it's not been eager. They've worked weekends, they've worked nights, early mornings to make sure students have access to technology so the instruction can continue no matter what limitations are in place. So I do want to take an opportunity to say thank you.
I'd also like to say, so you mentioned the two aspects of technology, but there's the third, to me, aspect, which is the creative side, which is sort of looking ahead and saying, oh, I saw this program, I think this would be good for teachers, I think this would be good for students, suggesting it, bringing it forward, getting people on board. I mean, that whole thinking outside the box has been huge in terms of keeping our students technologically ahead. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mike.